So the question is, do physical therapists get hurt? And yes, they do. I can confirm that. So as a lifelong runner, I've had some injuries, not too many. You would think though, because I'm a physical therapist, I treat active people, I treat runners all day long. You would think that I would be able to, be 100% successful with preventing injury. And I can tell you now that I was not. So I'm currently injured. I had been dealing with some calf tightness and it's kind of a little bit of some shin tightness, almost like a shin splint kind of feeling, where it kind of feels like it's deep inside, and my calf was feeling really tight as I was running. Then it had kind of progressed to the point where it was really hurting with every single step. My metrics for my Garmin watch were all over the place. So my left-right balance actually was bearing a lot more weight on my right side than my left side. And that's in part just because I was inefficient with how I was pushing off from that leg. So now here I am. I'm going to get into a little bit more about some of those symptoms. But what I wanted to tell you though was that in this process of being injured, I've actually discovered some really great things that are actually going to help me to improve my training. And that is the beauty, right, of I don't really love the idea of just talking about these silver linings, but I always think of an injury as an opportunity to improve something. So I'm taking this as an opportunity to improve my training that I do, and then also make it a little bit more well-rounded. So let's take this all the way back. I had asked John, I was so, how should I start talking about my symptoms? And he had said, he's start from the beginning and be honest. So the beginning is that my right side, my right hip is kind of always the problem side. If you do our MDFit classes, I'm always talking about this right side of mine. I had been noticing because I had increased some of my volume, and I did a really good job of increasing my volume. So I got up to somewhere between 43 to 48 miles in a week. I did that really steadily. I had been running maybe 25, 30 miles a week. And I really took about 3 months or so to increase that mileage, because what I started doing was I would do 2-a-days. So I'd run, say, 4 miles in the morning, 2 miles in the afternoon or evening. And then slowly what I did then was I got up to being able to run just 6 miles in the morning. So I was really steady with how I did it. And then I had started doing a single speed workout, which was great. I was really deliberate with how I was doing it. Then that's when I kind of first started to notice though a little bit more of this hip tightness. So my glute was a little bit more stiff. I could feel when I'd squat down that right side was a little bit more stiff. Was I really good about taking care of it? No. What I will say though is I always have 2 long yoga practices in a week, that are 2 hours long or so, and I always feel amazing after those. I'm also always really good about warming up. What I'm not good about doing is doing the recovery after. I kind of think of that as that's kind of your reset, right? Because what was happening with that speed work, especially with going around a track, I was just putting a little bit more stress on that right side. That right side is less efficient too, so it also just works a little bit harder. Then where I started running into difficulties was I started not only doing another tempo workout, but all of my runs just got a little faster, right? So I kind of started to combine training. So I was doing higher mileage and also a little bit more speed work. And then I was also not very good about taking it easy when you're supposed to take it easy. So I had been joking around that if a patient would have told me, yeah, I warm up and I'm running 46 miles a week. I'm doing 2 speed workouts. My long run is kind of fast. And then all those other runs are pretty just moderate pace. I'd be this is not a good idea. Right. So that was me. Where it really started to give me some issues was about 3 or 4 weeks ago. I really started to notice, okay, yeah, my calf is definitely feeling really tight. Then I was running home from work, and if I work pretty late. I just wanted to get home, so then I just went and I just started running, and I could feel my calf kind of pulling. And then from that point, then it kind of got a little out of hand. I always say that I'm just as bad as my patients. I can help you guys because I am one of you, right? So I knew this was a few weeks ago. I had strained my calf, and then I was oh wow, this even hurts kind of in the morning time. Did that that stop me from running? No, it did not. I was like, okay, I can kind of manage this. I can tell you that I did not manage it. When I was having some of that pain, I treated it, and I treated it a lot. And that's like the thing too, is that like I even have all of this accessibility in terms of like equipment. I'm married to someone who can help me. I have all of this knowledge, and it really just wasn't getting better. It was like tolerable for a run, but it wasn't getting any better. It took me about 3 weeks or so until I decided that I was going to finally address this. So then I decided that I needed to take a little bit of time off of running. Now, in the meantime, I've continued with being really diligent about foam rolling and stretching my my calf and the front of my shin, as well as my hip. You know, so you have to correct the entirety of those mechanics. So I've been really challenging some of that hip range of motion, and boy, I'm really stiff. I can feel the asymmetry side to side. So I've been working on doing that. What am I doing now that I'm not running? Well, I can tell you the first 2 days I was miserable. Like it was not good. I was texting John and I was like, this is so bad. I did this rowing workout and it was just like so useless. What's the point? What am I gonna do? You know, because like running is a part of who I am, right? I've been running for like more than 20 years. It just is like something that I do. I just love the act of it. Like it just is like part of me. So I was definitely really struggling. But what I found was through John's suggestion, he was like, why don't you use the assault bike? Why don't you use the Airdyne? So this is that old school, you know, like arms, legs are going. It makes like that, it's kind of loud. There's like this like propeller. I have been doing these like insane workouts on this bike. And what I have discovered is it's actually improving my conditioning, which is like so great. For those of you who are into like metrics, specifically the Garmin metrics, you know, you get this idea of like what's called a training effect. So it gives you a breakdown of you've done this activity, this cardiovascular activity, how much of this work was aerobic, how much of this is anaerobic. Anaerobic work forever eludes me, right? I always say that I've trained every single muscle fiber in my body to be slow twitch. Those are those endurance muscles. Well, with this bike, I have found my anaerobic work. So I've been varying kind of what I've been doing, but I do all intervals. So I start with warming up, and so I do like a foam rolling, stretching specific warm up, and then also some like glute activation work. So I do like a primer, then I warm up on the bike, and then I do like a bunch of different types of workouts. So they're all interval based. So I have been doing like 40 seconds on, 20 seconds easy, and I try to keep it above a certain speed. So at first I did 20 minutes and that was miserable. And then I was like, okay, well now I'm ready to do 30 minutes. Now I've been like kind of varying it too, where sometimes I'll do 20-second intervals with a 40-second break. And then I kind of go from there. So it has been so much fun. First of all, discovering something that I'm not good at, right? So like I'm not super efficient in even how I'm using this bike, which I actually really like though, because like it's something fun to kind of figure out. And I can feel how my left side consistently doesn't do some of the work that the right side does. Or I also feel some of the, on the right side, some of these muscles that I tend to overuse. So then I can correct my form as I'm doing the bike. The other thing that I'm doing is I am building into my total workout time that recovery work after. So when I get off that bike, I always now do foam rolling and stretching just to make sure that it's like, okay, Chloe, you have these asymmetries and then they're reinforced in the activity that you're doing. So then you have to like try to like pull them back. So then it goes into something where we're trying to say to ourselves like, okay, now you've done all this asymmetrical work, or, you know, like that's just how your body moves. Now let's try to pull it back in whatever way we can. I love the fact that I'm getting this unexpected benefit of doing these bike intervals, and it's actually going to be something that I integrate into my training when I go back to running. I know that I'm not quite ready to get back to running yet because it still kind of bothers me first thing in the morning when I wake up, or if I'm walking for say more than like an hour or something like that. It also bothers me if I like jump up into handstand. I have a yoga practice. So if I jump up, then I can feel that it's like kind of pulsating a little bit. So these little tests kind of tell me like, okay, Chloe, you still need a little bit more time. So I've continued to treat it. I've continued to do foam rolling, stretching, working on my mechanics, working on my hip stability. And I think that in a matter of like 2-ish weeks or so, I will be able to get back to running. What I will say though, is my training will be different. So I'm going to mix up some of my workouts where if I'm going to be doing some of the speed workouts, like how I am with like a speed workout on the track and a tempo and a long run, then I need to be really deliberate about some of the other runs that I do. I love the act of running in general. And I also love, I joke around about this all the time, I love overtraining. So I just do. So one of the things that I'm gonna start to do is I'm gonna pull back some of the mileage, but I'm gonna get in another quality speed workout by doing a workout on the Airdyne, because then I can get the benefit of that anaerobic work, and that will be a really good supplement for all of the aerobic work that I'm doing. Follow me for the next few weeks when I take you guys through my training. So I'm going to detail exactly what I do for each of my workouts, and I'm going to write a blog too, so then you can check on our website if you prefer to read it, of what I'm doing training wise, and I'll even include what I'm doing recovery wise and also what I'm doing treatment wise. So follow along.